Hey there, I'm Ginny.
And I'm Monica.
And this is Hitting Her Mark,
Podcast for women in the arts, actors, filmmakers, artists who are passionately chasing their creative dreams.
while juggling the beautiful chaos of caring for the ones you love.
We're here to share stories, insights, and inspiration, proving that you can hit your mark without compromising what matters most.
So if you're ready to make your creative dreams a reality, let's dive in.
Dana Fradkin is an award-winning actor, writer, director, and stunt performer, and has performed throughout North America and Europe. Her short films have toured festivals and won awards around the world. She's done numerous commercials and has also worked at the circus, the opera, Second City Comedy Club, free performing festivals, and in classical theater. Welcome, Dana Fradkin, to the podcast. I've known Dana for a few years now. We both went to George Brown Theater School together, different classes, but same program. And we've kept in touch and have gotten to know each other a bit more in recent years, actually. I am just, Dana, I'm always so impressed by you. Anytime I talk, if I ever mention your name, I always refer to you as like a mover and a shaker. You're a multi-hyphenate. You're an actor, a director, a filmmaker, a writer, a producer. You're always making something. And I'm just, honestly, I'm so in awe of your energy and your tenacity. So I can't wait to dig into your story. Thank you for
Oh my
being here.
Thank you. What a nice way of describing it.
Oh my goodness. You have so much creative stuff going on that I was going through doing a little bit of research and I was like, I don't even know what to bring up. Like there's like there's so much happening. All amazing, like all notable, right? Like it's
Thank you.
amazing.
Yeah.
So usually, Dana, we just kind of kick it off with you starting at the beginning of your artistic journey. I knew you grew up in Ottawa. So where did this artistic path begin for you?
Wow. Okay. That's a great question. So it started a bit sideways, actually. I feel like everything I've fallen into has started a bit sideways. I moved from the east end of Ottawa to the west end in grade 7, and I really didn't like the people I was going to elementary school with. And so I told my parents I cannot go to high school with them. And so we were looking at other options. And because I was Jewish, it was like, we can't go to Catholic school. So the only other option was someone on my street had mentioned this high school of performing arts in the south end of Ottawa, Canterbury. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. So I sort of put my focus on that. I mean, I've been dancing already, but I was kind of like, okay, let's audition for drama because for some reason that seems more fun. But I really didn't know much about drama. So I wanted to do monologues and I didn't know what that was. So I picked a novel in first person and just did those, which is hilarious now. Anyway, so I went there and that was such a great program. There's a lot of artists from Canterbury. And that kind of really got the bug going. Then I knew I wanted to continue. So I went to George Brown after. And then I continued, but I found the conventional route quite difficult for me, really fit into Stratford. And, George, you would know this, like George Brown was really sort of tailoring you to be at Stratford and Shaw. That's
Mhm.
especially in the early dozens, that's sort of where they wanted you to go. So I started making my own work because I figured that was the only way that I could find my own path, which is something I always say to students is, but some people I feel like the path that the school wants you to go on, it fits maybe 2 people in the class, and then everyone else sort of has to carve their own sort of journey. So I started making my own work, starting with theater. And then after a while, working my butt off on theater and then spending a whole year doing a show, putting it up, touring the fringe with it, getting, massive success, best of fest. And then at the end of the day, you're like, well, it's gone, which I think, Monica, you and I talked about this, like the amount of work. And at the end of the day, I had nothing to show for it. So that's when I started wanting to make movies. And also, I secretly had always wanted to be a movie star. So yeah,
I think
we
we
all
can
relate.
relate. We all wanted to be movie stars.
So I was like, why don't you make your own movies and maybe you could become a movie star? But also, that product is always there. And that was a big difference for me in moving forward once I started having those products that no matter what, it's like, oh, yeah, I can send you this. I can send you that. I can get work from this. this will always be something I have. I can see my evolution of my work much easier.
And that is a testament to your business mindset because it sounds like you've developed that very early on, just like understanding that starting with the playwriting and then realizing like, okay, wait, but at the end of this all, I don't have a product. Like,
Yeah.
and then moving into the screenwriting, that's amazing. I think that's like, it just goes to show how your business brain works.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's always interesting too when that's when you get the most creative when the opportunities haven't just been handed to you. And so you have to sort of solve it yourself. And I feel, yeah, and that's when you do the greatest discoveries. And then you're like, oh, cool, this is who I am as an artist. When
You're
someone's hiring,
forced to learn. You're
you're
forced
forced
to
to
learn.
learn.
You're forced
Yeah.
to figure out your own path.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And it's interesting what you say about George Brown too, because one of my questions for you today was also going to be, like, how did you feel theater school? Like, did it prepare you for the industry? What was sort of the biggest learning curve? Yeah. Do you want to talk more on that?
I think the biggest learning curve now, and this is maybe this will help young artists, was that what they said wasn't written in stone. Like that was my problem at 20, is that what these teachers could say could have so much power over you. Learning to like it, I think the biggest thing I've learned as an artist has been to find my own voice. And I wish I'd found it way earlier because I feel like George Brown really wants to make you, and other theater schools, and maybe it's changed, but really at that time, they really wanted to make you a certain type of artist. And they weren't pulling out who you naturally were and what you were offering. They were like, I want you to be this, or, I don't want to name names. But so my biggest learning curve was being able to be like, nope, that's that. Cause I don't know, Monica, like their voices are still in my head sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You're at such an impressionable
Oh my gosh.
age.
Yeah.
You've paid this large sum of money to these experts
Yes.
to guide you and to tell you. And our school system, that's how it is. You go from step 1 to step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, and you keep going and you trust the advice
Yes.
of
Yeah.
these people.
Because don't know otherwise, and they're not welcoming you to find your own path and to find your own voice. What I was thinking about this recently, I thought my best work I ever did at George Brown was my third year vocal mask. And for anyone who doesn't know what vocal mask is, it's a 30-minute piece that you sort of create on your own with different literature, whatnot, on a theme. So it's kind of like a one-woman show, but you're not supposed to write any of it. You like pull a little bit of Shakespeare, a poem, a song, and you kind of put it all together around a theme. And that was the only thing I got compliments for in those 3 years, and it was like, "Oh, yeah, even then, that was where I was the strongest, when I got to create something of my own," but they didn't embrace that. They didn't go, "Oh, wow, you know what would be good for you?" You know?
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's like that's the thing that where you had creative control. I feel like for me anyway, I remember, yeah, you'd be put into a bit of a box. Like these are most likely the roles you're going to get. I mean, I guess that's kind of what the industry is like now too, right? You're sometimes
Yeah.
put into a box.
Well,
This
did
is,
that as well, right?
but that doesn't mean that those were the parts or the type of material that I was necessarily attracted to. So how did you start to develop your voice? Like, so you leave theater school and you quickly realize you need to start creating your own work. So you start playwriting. How did that come about?
Yeah, that's a great question. It started with a physical theater company called Keystone. I'd played Charlie Chaplin in a Shakespeare play as like a little intro, and the director and I both agreed that I was really good at it. Well, it was like one of those things that was like, that was great, and I was like, yeah, that was really fun. That speaks to me. That makes sense to me. Some stuff makes sense and some doesn't. So we started a physical theater company based around theater and a silent film. And that was all collective creation. So we, through Laban and other techniques, we would come in and create characters and create scenarios and then start create scenarios around themes we wanted to explore. Like the first one was the building of the railway across Canada and how it ended in Winnipeg for a long time. And that's how a lot of immigrants ended up in Winnipeg. So we created that. It won some Doras. It did well, but then it was never put up again. And we worked for years on building that. And I think with that, we ended up doing 3 shows with that. And I think with that, I got a lot better as an actor and also became obsessed with collective creation because all of a sudden when you have power over your art opposed to just being an actor. It's like, well, I don't know how to go back. Actually, just before we were meeting up, I was reading this article about all these actors quitting because did you see this article? It's out. Anyway, I'll send it to you, like famous actors.
Oh, I'm so
including
curious.
Kate Blanchett just being like thinking of quitting acting because they're like, we have
did
no
see this.
agency. And I was like, oh yeah. Yes, yeah. So
Yeah, I get it.
yeah. So it's so fun to do, but what you feel stuck when you are sort of pigeonholed into those roles and you're like, but I really want to act and I don't want to wait. Like when I did go to Rodenberg, he said I fit like Linda Hamilton in Terminator or Rachel Griffiths in 6 Feet Under. I mean, this is obviously way back. And I was like, I would love to play Linda Hamilton. But he was also like, there's not very many roles for you. Like those are the roles you get. They're 1 in a million. And so, you're not going to work much. And you're like, well, like, how does that help me as an artist to just be told that by a teacher? And so this theater creation really helped. And after I made 3 of those, I actually wrote a play. I was obsessed with Girl Interrupted and wanted to make a play version of it with my friend Melissa. And we actually were in touch with Susanna's agent in New York. We were trying to adapt it. And then they said she was trying to make a Broadway show, which I still haven't seen. But anyway, we decided to write our own sort of version of that took place in Toronto. So then that was my first play opposed to collective creation. And we took that to Edmonton Fringe and it did okay. And then from there, I was talking to friends who were making short films. And I was like, why am I not making a short film? If they could do it, why can't I? And so I took that idea of that play that I wrote called Asylum by the Lake and thought up a short film about it. And
Dissatisfaction?
yeah, that's Satisfaction. That was my first short film I made. And so I had no idea at the time how to do that. I went on Mandy.com and was like, anyone interested in producing that? I have no money. I don't know anything. I've written the script. I had met this girl, Emily Coots. I don't know. She's in LA now, but I'd met her at like a Sears workshop. She was teaching Meisner and I was teaching Le Bon. And I drove her home and I was like, I was like, I think she's cool. Will you be in this? And she was like, sure, it sounds amazing. She brought in a lot of her people that helped build it. And then it was like, wow, and I still have it and it's not perfect, but we made that in 2014. So 11 years later, I can still look and be like, that's great. And now I've made
So great.
Yeah.
I just watched it and I was
You
like,
did?
how have I not seen this? Yeah. I was like, it's amazing. It's so great. I loved it. And I loved your performance in it too.
Oh.
But you wrote and produced and acted in that, correct? And who
Yes.
directed?
Yeah.
Did you direct as well?
No, I didn't direct that one. I didn't feel ready to direct at that point. Kat Weber, she's more of an editor now, but yeah, she's Emily's best friend actually. Now she edits a lot, but she was great. Yeah, and Kate Campbell and I know you know Kate. You met Kate.
Yes.
Her and I are adapting or trying to make a feature of Satisfaction. We've rewritten it as a feature and are trying to get money.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, yeah. So we've been working on it for years, but we almost went to
Love
camera.
all this collaboration and just sort of having that resilience and sort of guts to be like, you seem cool. Hey, let's do something and not being afraid of them being like, and then just on the other end for them to receive that and be like, you know what? Yeah, let's do this thing. Because there's so many doors, especially for actors, that close on us. And there's no explanation. You're just like,
Yeah.
I like this. And they're like, not.
No. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. And you're like, oh, come on.
But that speaks to your tenacity. You're not afraid to be like, do you want to work on this thing together? And I think you need to have a little bit of that energy in this business because it's so hard, right? The opportunities aren't knocking at your door, so you have to make and generate them.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel when I do work with students, always ask, or when I was in a young artist program a couple of years ago, I'm always like, where's the courses on how to do this yourself? Because no matter what our field is, if it's filmmaking or theater, or I work a lot in opera as well, and it's like the opportunities are not going to always come unless you're very, very lucky. And so how do we keep it interesting for ourselves and how Yeah, sometimes they're sideways.
Carve your own path.
Carve your own path and what makes you different, and learn a lot of skills and know. Yeah,
Using the stuff that makes you different for you rather
exactly.
than being like, "Oh, I don't fit this mold. I guess I'm just not gonna get a lot of work."
Yeah, yeah.
Guess that's my future.
I'll just, and there's nothing wrong with, and if this is what works for some people, it didn't work for me. Like, I'll just wait tables. I'll wait tables till I'm 60 or cater. And when I get the odd job, great. And then the rest of the time I'll cater. And that works for some people because but it didn't work for me. Like, I was like, I don't like leaving my career in somebody else's hands,
Yeah.
you know,
Or waiting or just waiting.
waiting, just staring at the phone.
Yeah, it's so
So
painful.
how did your writing plays and creating plays, what were the differences when you decided to move to camera work?
Uh,
Did you have to find things that worked great here and didn't work here? What was that process?
That was a great question. I had really found that I was with the collective creation in the theater specifically. I really found my best way of working was when I was improvising and jamming with other people. And luckily, when we made Satisfaction, at that time, Emily was really into Meisner because she was dating Sean Benson at the time and Kat. And so we did a lot of Meisner, which in a weird way felt similar because it was just kind of weirdly jamming together. And so Kat did lead us through Meisner. But I think in general, that was the hardest thing was um, not having that same time to jam, also have my brain slightly outside of it all, worried about every other aspect. Like, there were so many more people involved. Satisfaction, there's 30 people on set and worrying about all this stuff and then the mic is showing and then I want to move around the way I want to move around and then I have these really like specific rules and I'd done that in obviously in the movie of the weeks and the shows that I'd done, but it felt different when it was my own work because I was like, no, wait. I mean, yeah, that was kind of interesting. Just the larger scale, I think, was the biggest shift, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, you're moving from this huge space where you get to, and you're big and you get to move around and you get to, you know, you're still hitting marks, but they're different kind of marks to
Right.
this tiny little box that
Yeah.
you need to emerge in and then figure out close-ups and inserts and all of these little things that you don't necessarily need to think about in
Yeah.
theater.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Dana, what tips do you have for filmmakers who do have to, like yourself, wear multiple hats, like producing, writing, directing, acting, all in the same project? Like, what are the big challenges taking on so many roles in a project,
I
like
think the
Satisfaction, for
biggest,
example?
yeah, satisfaction, bodice ripping. If I don't know if you watch any of my web series, which in my web series, I can't handle my acting because I can see that all I'm worried about is producing. Like I can just see my brain is not there. So I think that's the biggest thing. When I directed Night Terror and I didn't act, it was a lot easier to be like director and producer and really because you feel like you're in charge of the team. You brought the whole team together. You were in charge of all that. You have a connection as a director, you have a connection with everyone on set. But when I've acted and produced it, it's been really, really hard to turn the brain off. When we did Case of the Massive Bodice Ripping, we filmed in my friend's house. So she was this woman I'd met at Dress for Success, which I used to volunteer at. And she'd given us her beautiful house in like Bayview Heights. And, I'd be acting and I'd be like, don't put the water there. Don't put your glass of water on our nice table. Like I just like she couldn't, like so that's the hardest thing. Like when I hear that people direct and act in the same piece, like that amazes me because I find and as I get older, when I'm an actor, like I'm like, you cannot focus on outside of that world. So I think that's been the biggest challenge is trying when you're doing your own project, trying to be able to do each job separately and not trying to do all four at the same time. Like my writing partner, Heather, whenever I meet with her, when we were putting up the web series, I'd be like, so we'd be writing and then I'd be like, okay, so do you think we should have Johnny as producer? Or so like I would ask a producer questions in the middle of writing. Like I would go back and forth and she would be like, no, different meeting for like she was much better at that. But my brain is like every piece that's not working needs to be handled. which at the same time means it never slows down. So that's
a part of it. But
that
that's
was a
good
long
that you
answer.
can recognize it,
Now,
right?
Yeah.
Now.
Now.
But that's the beauty of doing it, right? You've learned these lessons along the way, and now you can structure
Yeah.
future projects a little differently so that it works like in your advantage, in a way that you get the support you need, or maybe don't take on as much, whatever it is to make it work
Yeah,
for you.
I think that's the biggest thing is that larger budgets moving forward so I can bring in a really strong producer so that you can step away from that role um, as you move forward. Yeah,
Right. That you can just hand it over.
exactly. So that someone else is, whether it's a house of a friend and they're taking care to make sure nothing's being ruined, damaged, or they're the ones worrying about, yeah, what we're eating or when we're eating or just everything. The bigger a production you can have doesn't need to be massive, but I mean, these have all been very low budget, right? Which is a
Contributes to stress.
contributes to stress. It's a great learning curve when you've been like, we did this all with no budget. And that's a real great high. But yes, so much stress. I think
On that note, I'm curious. We have so much to cover, so I'm going to be like, yeah, again, I want to cover all your facets. But something that I think would be helpful to folks who are trying to get projects made. I feel like you're well versed in grant proposals, and we're talking about budget and money. So, what have you found to be helpful? What have you found to be helpful in securing funding? Like,
question, but you know what? I'm actually really unsuccessful at grants. I've maybe gotten no, I've gotten about 4 out of 75 maybe I've written over the years for all my if I include all my theater grants. I've been really unsuccessful. We were obviously with the web series, I wouldn't really call that a grant, but Bell Media gave us the money and greenlit us. So that was something sort of different. But at Night Terror, we got a Toronto Arts Council grant. And that blew my mind because I had never gotten a Toronto Arts Council grant before. And I might attest that to my writing partner because she worked for Heritage Minutes for a long time and she knows the grant. It's a trick. And I've had a really hard time with it, to be honest. Satisfaction and Bodice Ripping, we did crowdfunding. And for all my plays, we did crowdfunding.
I
So we
see.
got
Okay.
10,000 bodice 10,000 for Satisfaction, 10,000 for Bodice Ripping in Indiegogo, like back when people were doing Indiegogo. Same with all 4 of my
Right.
plays. It was all crowdfunding.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's amazing.
Yeah, I write them all the time.
Well, that's the thing. Like, at least you even know how to do that. I think there's a lot of people out there who don't even know where to begin with even writing a grant proposal.
Right. Like even just having that 4 out of 75. Like, I don't know. Comparative. Like, I mean, that sounds pretty good to me.
Think about auditions, right?
Right.
Ratios to
Yeah.
auditions, bookings
Yeah.
to.
Oof. Yeah.
But something that we do know that you're good at is getting into film festivals, which I think, again, a lot of people try. They produce these works of art that they poured, their heart and soul into, and then like no one ever gets to see it except on
That's
YouTube.
heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking. Do you know people that's happened to?
I've been in projects.
Really? And didn't get in anywhere.
Yeah, and I mean, I was never involved. I'm an
Yeah.
actor in it, and I didn't involve myself, but I was pretty like excited, and they were excited. We're submitting for this and this and this, and then I don't hear back, and I assume that I would if and I don't want to like rub the salt in the wounds and be like, so you said you were going to apply to all of these things, what happened? But yeah, and I definitely know
Yeah.
people who have even like scripts, just being like, I'm just going to submit it just for the script writing.
Yeah.
And it's
Yes.
like, not today.
It's hard. Yeah. And I just got turned down from IPS yesterday. I was like, oh, man. But it's hard with those festivals. Luckily, all 5 of my short films and the web series have all gotten in festivals. Um, both Satisfaction and Night Terror did the horror rounds, and I think that has helped it. I've definitely learned from the original Satisfaction of Bodice Ripping. I've definitely learned a little bit more about where a film, because there are so many. So I think one of the tactics is like where is this film going to succeed? So for bodice ripping, I think Karen Knox, who directed it, and I learned pretty quickly that it had a European mentality. I don't know if you watched that one too. Yeah, it got into the Venice Short Film Festival, not the large Venice one, but they have a short one that happens just after it. It got into Budapest, the Budapest Film Festival. I got into Canadian Film Fest actually, but Jen Poe was a producer on it, and she runs Canadian Film Fest. So I feel like that helped it. But we put it in Cannes. Yeah, we put it in the Cannes short film. But you can just do that. We just did that.
Oh,
But it
exciting.
sounds glamorous. It's very exciting. Well, that's what's amazing about it. The Cannes in competition only actually takes 8 short films, which, like, if you can imagine, they do one screening of it. So if you can imagine, it's like the amount of people that want to get in. So we didn't even apply for the competition because you're like, no. But you can put yourselves in the market, and then you get a free pass to Cannes, and then you go to the market, which is underneath, like in the basement of the massive pavilion. And you meet people, and you sell your film, and then there's a Canadian pavilion too that'll help promote any Canadian film. So it's really cool. Have you been, Jenny?
I went for a web series, so
Oh,
a
great.
K series in 2023.
It's
That
so
that was
fun.
really, really cool. It
It
is
was
so
so
much
fun.
fun. The after parties.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. 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 The whole thing was so fun. Karen.
Ooh, I want to hear those stories offline.
Yeah.
Karen.
The morning is when I got back.
Yeah.
Wow. I got really sick at the Ritz, and I think they were out till 5 a.m., but I walked home at like 2. We don't need to hear about this on the podcast.
Yeah. Do you know what though? It's like you feel so safe there. That was another
Yeah.
that was the thing. Like everybody, everybody's an artist, everybody's an actor, creator, and we're just all having a good time.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so free. And it's French. It's France. So you're like, what?
Right. And then just that being around other creatives doing, it just makes you feel like this is possible.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost like
Yes.
plugging in and getting recharged with that creativity and that hope
Yeah, you just
that
know.
sometimes you don't get.
I know. You just know new things, magic happens in this place at this time. Like, you just know, you've heard the stories of like Quentin Tarantino swimming to the yacht with Pulp Fiction. Like you hear these stories and you're like, that's me. But yeah, Bodice Ripping definitely did a much more of a European tour other than Canadian Film Fest. And so we learned that. And yeah, it did well at Cannes. People enjoyed it. That was really fun. It was cool. We got people out to see it.
Awesome. Okay, I want to go into a little bit of your directing now. I'm going to move so we can cover all grounds here. So I know you made your opera debut as a clown, yeah, Bohème, with the Canadian Opera Company, and you were an acrobat.
Yes.
In the 2015 production of, I can't even pronounce it, you'll have to say it.
Valkyrie. It's the Valkyrie.
Thank you.
It's a Valkyrie. Yeah,
That was directed by,
yeah.
yes. So how did
Yeah.
that experience come about? And was that sort of the stepping stone into directing opera? Like,
Yeah.
explain how this all melted
Great
into each
question.
other.
I got hired as a clown in Bohème, and Joel, that was 2009, and Joel Ivany who ran ATG Theater for a long time. He was the assistant director in that, and we became friends. But I didn't talk to him that much after that. And then in 2015, I got a call randomly from COC. I guess they still had my measurements on file saying the woman had dropped out. And if I wanted to come in, and Adam McGoyan is directing it, I was like, yes, please. That sounds amazing. It's like I was on stage for 5 minutes making, and the money's great. So no, money is great because it's the largest theater equity house in the country. So I did that, and Adam was great. I was really intimidated by him. It's very strange, and we talked about this with Gordon. It's very strange being an actor in an opera company. Like it's very other. Like you feel very odd. But Adam's great. He's been great up till now because he knows, because my career, he's like one of my inspirations for the type of career I want to do. He's just the opera directing, the movie directing, the script writing. Like, he's so innovative. He's constantly coming up with ideas. He's finding ways to mix all the skills that he does into. And so he's been really nice to, he's just great this way. I don't know if you know him, but my friend Miranda, he was supporting her film about Salome, and he's Sarah Pauli's mentor, and he just loves lifting up young artists, and I really really enjoy that. But it's not him that got me into directing, it's Joel. So after Valkyrie, I looked around and I was like, yeah, opera singers could use some help with movement. That's what I thought of. I was like, I was so movement-esque, like I'd been doing stunt work and a lot of tumbling and those physical, and I thought I can help these singers with movement on stage because I believe there should be in opera. And so I sort of approached Joel about that first with a Theatre Ontario grant. One of the four I've gotten was they used to have this grant where you could assist a mentor in whatever field other than acting, whether it was choreography or directing. So I'd gotten this grant. He called it assistant director, but it was mainly to help him, to help opera singers with movement. But then it really did turn into assistant directing. And then I kind of feel like Joel made my career as a director. He started just getting me work. He was like, Laurier needs someone to do the opera scenes. Will you do it? And then again, and it was such a small community that then he's like, can you assist a Canadian Children's Opera Company? Can you do this? And then once you're kind of in it, you were in it, and then work was coming my way. And then I got more into it myself and got more into the community. And that's kind of how it built.
Well, you were also good at it, right? So let's not discount that, right? It's not like once you're in the fold, it's automatic. You were good at it, and that's how you sustained that cycle of work.
Yeah,
Which is amazing, which is great.
yeah, I really enjoy it. It's I just really saw the whole, I was like, oh, actually with all my work as a physical theater artist, this makes sense because I don't have to worry about the music. I actually just have to worry about the storytelling. And then if it's in a different language, yeah, there's subtitles, but really what I need to focus on is how you're telling the story through your body, through space. And with all that physical theater work, coming back to that, I really understood movement on stage and people on stage. And so that helped a lot with choruses and large casts. And yeah, it ended up working.
So you'd be focusing more on the story, the movement,
Visual, the moving
visual.
picture. Yeah, the big picture, all of the, it would be the same as what a director would do in film. And then you have the DOP that's going to take care of the actual shot. And then you're worrying about the overall storytelling and the whole essence of what you're trying to say. And so I actually find that the two art forms, I haven't directed theater proper yet. I would like to, but having directed film and directed opera, and I can see why they both make sense to Adam as well, is that like they actually may make sense. Like your job is actually more similar than I think. I think sometimes we, in Canada specifically, we can get stuck in this idea of okay, well, you're this. We're pigeonholed here. If you direct film, there's no way you could direct a play, or there's no way you could direct opera. You direct opera, you can't direct a play. And it's like, well, no, actually, I think we can. I think once you understand storytelling, I think it's whether or not you have an interest in telling that story, and then you absolutely can tell it. That's what I
You might have to modify a few things, but
exactly. Do your
all
research.
part of the learning process. Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back a little bit because you called yourself a physical artist, and I
Yeah.
know that you were a dancer. But I mean, how did you get into stunts? How did you get into circus, clowning, all of that stuff? How did that evolve?
Great question. So I was a dancer, pretty competitive in high school. And then after theater school, I was really getting into the dance scene here. And I was trying to audition for musical theater because I really wanted to be in musical theater. But I couldn't sing. Like I can't sing. And so I realized like there was no, oh no, I can't. Monica, my song got
I'll
cut.
challenge you on that, but continue.
My song got cut from music night at George Brown. I was the only solo to get cut. Deborah actually said it was not good enough.
Jack, one
Okay.
person's opinion.
And yet it did not get cut from the Christmas checklist.
Oh, it did
Well,
not get cut from
I digress.
we did a movie together where I had to sing. But if you knew how many rehearsals I had with him and I had to have an earpiece when we recorded it. I had to have an earpiece with him singing it so that I could stay on key, because without him singing it, I would not stay on key. And when we filmed it, sorry, we're digressing, but when we filmed it and and it was my recording and I was on stage singing it too, all the extras came out and they're like, you have a beautiful voice. And I was like, see? Oh, yeah, it was nice. I'm just maybe not very good at staying on key without a lot
I
of
think,
help.
but I also think sometimes it gets in your head. One
Totally.
person tells you something, you're not good at this. Next thing you know, you start not being good at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And then you become
That
dependent.
is so true. I cannot tell you. I think when there was a point in my life where I said for the longest time, I'm like, oh, I don't do comedy. Like I can't do comedy. I've always saw myself as a drama girl. And then as I went on, I was like, wait a second,
Yeah.
where did that come from? Why
Yeah.
did I peg myself that way? Who
Yes.
says I'm not funny?
You're totally funny. You are funny. No, that's a real thing. And I think comedy's one. I think anything with the arts, because it's vulnerable. Like if you tell someone once that they can't do that, and that's what I think is so dangerous about George Brown, is like we're so impressionable. And I think singing's a really specific one. Like if you've been told, if you hear Angelina Jolie talking about singing for Maria, I don't know if you saw that movie that she just did as Maria Callas. She played an opera singer.
Right.
Yeah, and she had to learn singing, and she was like, "I just had no idea. Someone told me when I was young that I can't sing, and I just never pursued it again." Like you shut your brain off for that, and that's so why? Yeah, who? Like one 60-year-old
One
teacher?
person or like, and if nobody else ever, because one person has told you, so you never try again. So there's nobody else to say, hey,
Yeah.
actually, you're pretty good. All you need is a little
Yeah, a little this or that.
whatever, right? Or yes, because singing, it's just an instrument. It's just an instrument. You more you practice, the better you're gonna get.
Although I do wanna say Deb and George Brown was not the only person who said I couldn't sing. Quite a few. But I also was told to lip sync in my High School Musical. No, but but it was nice.
To pursue musical theater.
Wanted to get singing. Okay, so pursue musical theater. Couldn't sing.
I mean, you could have done, I mean, ensemble.
Well, that was
Ensemble
the
is
thing.
all in your ear, right?
You still had to be a good enough singer to do ensemble. So I was not getting cast. So I went, okay, singing's going nowhere. But what if I'm a fighter? Because like women fighters, and it was way less common. So then I started getting into kung fu and tumbling, and I did the Ren Fair, and I was like, actually, I'm really good at this because I understood. I've always just understood movement very easily. It's strange how our bodies work, right? Like I don't understand anything with a voice naturally. It's all work. Same with voiceover and cartoons, but with body, it's like, oh yeah, this makes perfect sense. So with that, I got more into fighting. And then with fighting, became friends with a lot of the fight director community. And then from there, got more into tumbling, which got me a couple the odd stunt gig, a couple fight short films that I did in my tweens, which were really fun. Yeah, that's kind of how I fell into that. Yeah, realizing that dancing was gonna lead me nowhere. Yeah.
Well, you know what is funny so just a short little story is, so I worked on Disney Cruise Line where I was like in musical theater, but I had never danced before. Was again told I don't know how to dance, I can't move properly, like in that fashion. And I was like, okay, fine. And like one of the jokes was there were a few of us that didn't know how to move properly.
Right.
And I would always ask so many questions. I'd be like, okay, if my leg is this way, how does my arm move? And at one point, the choreographer was like, Jenny, when you walk, do you walk with the same arm, with the same leg? Think about it. It's just natural. And I was like, it's not natural for me. Like, I don't know. Do I? How do I walk? You just lack that awareness. It doesn't come naturally. You need it. But again, it goes down to what you have been told, trusting yourself, trusting your body.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
obviously, the additional training that you get that improve it more and more every time.
Yes. Wow, that's really funny. Like, no, it doesn't make sense.
Let's talk a little bit about your acting as well. So you've done a number of, and writing too, which I had no idea, Dana, that you have like Lifetime movies that you've written.
I wrote one that keeps meaning to go to camera, and then they keep pushing it by a year. So I'm not sure if it's ever actually like Lifetime bought it. They paid me to write the whole thing. and it was on the slate a couple years ago, and then it got pushed to the next year. And that was supposed to be this spring. It was spring 2025, but now it sounds like it just keeps getting pushed. So I don't know if it'll ever get made.
How did you even get into that, though? How did you even start that? How did they buy your how did Lifetime get involved? Who did you call?
I didn't call anyone. That was okay. So the Mandy Doc full circle. So Satisfaction, when I put on Mandy.com to find a producer, I found this woman named Val Morrow who came on to produce the short film Satisfaction. She ended up being the lawyer she was also a lawyer for Neshama Productions that does a lot of movie of the weeks. So they were looking for horror writers, which is a genre I feel really comfortable in. And so she recommended me. So they reached out to me from that. And they asked to see a script, and I had Satisfaction, the feature written. I'd written a version on my own, and then Kate came on board and rewrote it together. So I sent them my original version of Satisfaction, and they hired me from that. So it's just so interesting how it all, like you meet these people, and then years later, they come back in the strangest way. And a lot of these really cool opportunities have sort of come sideways. It's a new woman at Neshama, but I'm always going back and forth with pitches to try to get another one made, but they're hard. I have so many. I just got a literary agent, which is great. So I've been sending her, I've been sending her all my pitches. Yeah. Yeah. That was fun.
How does that start for you, like the writing process? Like, is it just like you get an idea? Do you write on your own? Do you get together with friends and develop ideas together? And then is it always with the goal in mind to, you know what, I'm going to create this piece for this network, or I'm going to try and pitch this. What's the process for you?
Yeah, it's a little bit of all of the above. Like I have Heather that I made the web series with. We got tax credit money, so we're trying to work on a new pilot. I have a pilot on my own. And then Davida that I wrote Night Terror with, that's touring festivals now, we're working on a feature together. And then because I have a lot of movie of the week connections, like even Kaylee Kavanaugh from I'm submitting, from Nintendo, I'm submitting them stuff all the time. Like, I'm like, how about this one? There's been a few. I'm just keeping a lot of those connections alive on my own too, and writing 2-pagers, ideas. So yeah, a couple writing. I have a meeting later this afternoon with another friend where we're going to work on a Hallmark together, start working on a Hallmark together. And coming up with pitches and having connections. Yeah, that's really a connection thing, which is been, like that's the other thing I'm learning is just being out and meeting people and talking to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This comes back to the mover shaker piece.
Yeah.
So you so what tips do you have for anyone who's trying to, get some writing off the ground and get their own stuff made? Like Monica and I.
Yeah.
Which this is a recurring theme on our podcast episodes, Jenny and I, saying like, we just need to find the writer. We need a writer for all of our good ideas.
Let's meet for a writing group. Let's figure that out.
Let's do this. We'll give you all our ideas.
I started being able to really write. Like I was writing with a friend with no idea about structure. And then I'd taken the odd like playwriting class at Tarragon or U of T, but they were like sporadic and they didn't give me a formula. Like I needed a formula. And Movie of the Weeks have a formula, which Neshama sent me, a 9-act formula, which really helped. So I took screenwriting 1, 2, and 3 at George Brown, and I took a pilot writing at George Brown. And those are all 3-month courses. And that hugely helped because it started from like the beginning. Like screenplay 1 was like, this is how you start an idea. These are the big pillars that you need to answer first. And then you fill in this way. And once you have like your proper beat by beat outline, then you can start filling it in with actual dialogue. Like my mom's a murder mystery novelist, and she writes very differently. Like I try to talk to her about writing, but she's like, I have no idea who did it when I start writing the book. And then halfway through the book, I'm like, oh, I think so-and-so did it. I'm like, no, it's very hard to write a script. To me, very hard to write a script that way. Really impressive. Like for me, I really have to have it like beat it out. And then the writing process is actually not that hard because you know exactly, each scene. And that's the way they wanted it.
Carved out.
Yeah. And that's how they wanted it in Neshama. They didn't even send me to writing. They sent me a 2-pager And from there, I had to do about like a 20 to 30 page outline of like a paragraph per scene. And not until they okayed that could I go into writing the actual script. So that took a couple drafts. And that's how I wrote Fueling Fitness, my feature film as well, is I started it as a treatment and worked with my story editor to make sure all the major beats were in the right places, and then could write the script. So that would be, I think that was a huge help. So that would be my advice in writing film, is to be like, take an actual course where it teaches you structure, especially if you want to try to do like a movie of the weeks, because they are glued to structure. You know what I mean? Like to a cheese. So
It's a formula. They have a very
have a very
formula.
formula. Yeah. And once you know the formula, it's actually not too difficult to fall within it. Feature films, can be whatever you want. That's what's so fun about them. But yeah.
As a writer, are you also writing parts that light you up as an actor, like that you see yourself playing? Like what
Yeah.
kind of roles light you up as an actor, and what are the roles that you see yourself playing or that you'd like to be playing? And are you writing them for yourself?
That's a great question. So I definitely did. So Satisfaction Marika was definitely written with something I want to play. And the feature, when Kate and I were going to bring Satisfaction to camera, I was actually going to play a secondary part and not the lead. But now if we do it now, I'm like, no, I want to play the fucking lead. Like, I want to play the lead.
Right, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I like roles that are a little wild and a little different. And so in Satisfaction, she's like really struggling. She's struggling with delusions and betrayal, and I like playing dark roles, which is funny because I am good at comedy, but I love being. And back to my stunt work, like I think my dream role in film, I would have been like Uma Thurman in Kill Bill. Like what a role, Like what a role. So I've always wanted to write myself something like that, or Natalie Portman in Black Swan, not without maybe the could never be a ballet dance. I'm too old for that part now, obviously. But these roles where the inner monologue is so
But isn't that such a great idea of like, you're this ballerina who's been told you're too old?
Yeah.
Do you know
oh my gosh. Unreal.
all these young bitches out there? And guess what? You get to do it.
Yes. Put them all.
See what I mean by the good ideas?
It's true. And my cousin is actually going through that. She's a prima ballerina with the Royal Ballet, and she's getting to be too old, and that's
Oh,
a stroke.
but I feel like medical advancements, all that stuff. You look at athletes. Hey, LeBron James
Yes.
defying all odds here. And I think why not?
Why not?
Ballerinas.
Yep. Like Monica, like with Tess and Fueling Fitness, there's like a dream to play that role, but also I thought I wanted to direct it. Like that was sort of the goal, was like, oh, I want to direct my own feature. Like that's one of my big next goals. So having to give up, like obviously I wrote Tess with my own brain in mind, and then was like, I would give it, if I'm going to direct it, like we were talking about before, I don't want to be directing my first feature and playing the lead. Like that would just be a nightmare. So. But, then like being told that it'll have a better chance of being made if we have like a star director on it. So then it's like, okay, well, if I can't direct it, then I do want to play Tess. So that sort of thing. Yeah. I like when my characters are a little dark and wild. Let's say that.
Well, unhinged.
A little unhinged. Everything I want to be, but I'm too good in society to be.
Right. I think this also plays back to the theater school days, or like even the David Roddenberry, where you go on camera and they say, this is what you are able to play. It's like I've always felt like that. Like I've always wanted to do something darker and grittier. And it's like, but then somehow I'm like, okay, but this is your box. You're not the dark, gritty girl. It's like, but I want to be the dark, gritty girl. Like,
You could so be a dark, gritty girl.
Just like anyone can be an unsuspecting hero, they can definitely be the unsuspecting psycho.
what's that movie? Oh, is it called Nobody? It's with I forget his name now. It's gonna bother the Better Call Saul actor, the main actor, Better Call Saul.
Bryan Cranston is that? No. I don't.
Anyway, he's in a movie where he plays like an unsuspecting hero, and he's just like this like everyday dad, and then he fucks shit up in that movie. It's like such a good, it's so good.
Right, which is sort of what happens with, like, Bryan Cranston, right? How he went from Malcolm in the Middle, y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like drug lord.
totally.
Yeah.
So it's possible
Stuff
for all of
like that.
us.
Yes.
We just gotta,
We need to rotate our ideas, Jenny. Okay, so throughout, I guess we have to kind of find a close because we are reaching our hour. And since our podcast focuses on women who are, pursuing their passions while also juggling life's responsibilities, you wear so many hats, Dana. How do you manage to juggle it all? Like, do you have a strategy or approach on how you work and manage your work and life responsibilities?
Well, that's a great question. I write everything in my big book.
Mhm.
Huge calendar, like including writing time or things. I have like made this new rule where I don't do more than 3 social things a week, even that's the coffee. Like I've tried to get really, really tight on that. I mean, obviously I'm personal training a lot to try to make ends meet. Yeah, I think time management, like, I think that is, like, the biggest thing, and it's like my schedule can be planned weeks in advance sometimes, like, I'm just, and if I have a free window, it's like, "Okay, what is the next thing you wanna work on?" But that being said, like, time I lose time all the time. You're like, "Oh, shoot," I don't have time for this, or I don't have time for that, and how do I do my priorities? And I still want to exercise every day, and I like to drink my coffee in the morning. And the book and the time and scheduling everything is a really good one. And being
do you
poor.
find you have do you find that you have to schedule in, like, the downtime too?
Yeah, and I have to give myself that in the morning. Like I have to have a little bit of a like downtime morning, so I'll get up earlier than I even want to be like, oh, I need to sit with my coffee before I do anything. Yeah. Partners help that to be like, right, like I need to keep some nights free to just like hang out with him.
Yes. Yes.
It's true though. You gotta like schedule your couple time. Like
Yeah.
it's or it just ends up, like you gotta make time.
You're just roommates.
Yeah.
Passing each other.
Yeah. You gotta be like, okay, we're just gonna sit at home tonight and watch some TV. Yeah.
I didn't want to wrap things up without noting some exciting things that are coming up. Directing a musical recording of a short film, The Laurels, and then you're going to be also performing at a festival, Magic Shenanigans,
Yeah.
and Waterloo. Actually, that brings up a question for me. You travel, right? Like I mean, even though Waterloo isn't that far, but I mean, you're dedicated to the show. That's still quite a drive, but you're in Winnipeg, like, you travel even if it's just within Canada, you're traveling.
Yeah, I've worked in 9 of the 10 provinces. Yeah, and what we never got to all I did years of busker festivals and busking and had a street act and comedy act, and so this is back to that. It's been a long time since I've done that, but that some Magic Shenanigans, and then the short film Laurels, which is an opera short film, blending the 2. We're doing a recording of that in September, then hopefully going to camera once we secure funding. But we have the funding for the recording, so that's the first bit, which is exciting. Yeah.
Would you want to direct a musical?
I would love to
I
direct a
mean,
musical. I
I feel like it's in that world.
they won't. I know we're past our hour, but that's one of the bridge walls I'm coming up to because I've just directed opera. Musical theater is not entertaining me as a director. It's very strange. So I have been trying
So
for a long
strange.
time. I know, because musical theater is more in theater. So if you've directed theater, you could direct musical theater. But if you directed opera, you can't. Like it's strange, right? Like I haven't directed theater, only opera and film. Yeah.
But you've created your own work.
Created my own work, so a lot of but in it, so there was someone else who was the official
Okay.
director of it, but we created it, yeah.
Why can't we be multidisciplinary artists? Like you went to theater school, you understand how playwriting. Let's give these artists a chance. How are we supposed to develop and grow as artists if we're not allowed to kind of try different things?
And also then you see the same work over and over again. So I had a meeting with, an American agent about directing yesterday, which it went great. It was more just a meeting. She wasn't gonna sign me, but we were chatting about the American market and how much more and I was just telling her I really wanted to get into it because they're more open-minded and willing to take those risks. And Canada's a little bit more stuck in this, I feel, and I've talked to other people in the community, stuck within this place of like, you're in this box, you're in this box. But it's also because Canada, there's a lot more risk. Like you can't fail. There's not enough money to fail. They're putting up a play
Right.
in Toronto, it can't fail, or the company could go under. Like they're all at the verge of, so that doesn't allow for them to be like, yeah, let's give a try on you in one of our shows for the season. It's like, I have to know it'll be a hit. I have to already know it'll be a hit.
And
Yeah.
it's sort of that formula thing again, right? It's like we know what's going to work,
Yeah.
and that's what's worked all along, and we
Exactly.
don't have the capacity to like risk it right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Dana, you're just going to have to direct your own work and show
do a musical.
folks that it's possible. Okay.
Yep. Great. Great.
Okay. So, I have like two final like send off questions. Do you have any sort of final inspirational words or any advice to artists out there who may be struggling, or any advice you've ever received from a mentor that you could share with any actors out there, or filmmakers, or anyone who's sort of pursuing the arts?
Yes. Two things. A friend of mine who I actually randomly bumped into yesterday for the first time in like 7 years has still to this day said one of the biggest things that have registered. One of the largest quotes that's ever registered with me, which is, just because the small people said no to you doesn't mean the big people will either. And I know it sounds weird, but it was so true. Like, don't, just because the small community or your community you're in says no to you, it doesn't mean you can't go. Then that's happened to me. Like, I've asked like a fellow actress to be part of something, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go ask like Eric Peterson. I'm just gonna like cold call him, one of our biggest actors. He's like, sure, sounds great. I mean, like it's so interesting that, and Adam Agoyan's a great one too, right? Like someone of that caliber takes an interest, but a director just won't. And so that idea of like, don't, just because the small ones say no does not mean don't reach for the stars, because usually in a weird way, that's how they got that big, is that they have a real curiosity of talking to people and meeting people and bringing in new talents, and not knowing, like, we met these writers in New York when we were I mean, in LA when we were there for Night Terror, who are huge. They've made a massive horror franchise, and I sent them my short film, and they wanted to hear our feature outline. And when I messaged them and I'm like, oh, we're running, they're like, no problem. They get back to me within the hour. One time we sent them their outline. We're like, we're in the middle of the fires. It might take us a couple weeks to look at your outline. And then they got to it in 3 days. Like, they're so much more interested than my community here. And I'm like, these guys have made a massive franchise. This is so, anyway, that's my biggest piece.
Because they're also mover and shaker.
Because they're mover and shakers. Exactly. It makes sense when you actually think of it, because they're constantly excited by new works. And the other thing is to just not focus on all the people saying no, same sort of thing, and to just go along your own journey of the stories you want to tell or the work you want to make, and just do it. Send out to Mandy.com, put out posts. We're all so connected. Hey, is anyone willing to help me? I'm making this 5 minutes short of this, whatever, or anyone know where, and a team comes together when you do that. And so just, yeah, don't let the no's dictate your career. That's the biggest thing.
That's great.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Okay, and final question. When you hear the phrase hitting her mark, what does that mean for you? How do you define success in your life, personally or professionally?
I think just continually being involved and doing stuff like this. I think talking to other women, meeting artists, having engaging coffees and meetings, and sharing projects with each other and supporting each other's projects. That's um, hitting our mark to me. Yeah, especially with women. Sure. Yeah.
I love it. And thank you, Dana, for supporting us by being on the podcast today.
Thanks. And all your stories and your advice, it really is inspirational.
Thank you, both of you. It was so great to be on here and chat with you.
Something that Dana said that really resonated with me is, you always hear the story of like, oh, you don't know what impression you're going to make with who, and you might not hear back right away, but then years down the line, something will come up from that one meeting or that interaction. And you're like, yeah, well, when's when's my offer coming in from? Right? Because so many times you talk to people and they're like, oh my gosh, the next time I make something, for sure. And then you never hear back from them. Dana just made that real for me because it's happened for her.
Yeah.
I mean, that gives me hope.
And also just assembling a crew, right? If she's doing a film or something, she would just reach out to me, hey, I'm doing this film. I need a couple people, or I'm doing this reading. I have my, my feature. I need it to be read by actors. Can I get a group of actors together and so I can hear it out loud? And how willing people usually are to just jump in. And I've also, like, I think, Jenny, you can attest to this too. Even through our podcast, like, I've been so amazed when I reach out to people, and sometimes I'm nervous too. Like, I'm like, okay, like, you gotta reach out to someone and be like, hi, I'm doing this thing, and how quickly people are responding with like, yeah, absolutely. I think it's so great. It's so great that you're putting yourself out there and you're doing this thing. And it's just like a reminder that people are way more amiable to helping you than you think. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there and reach out,
Yeah, and just ask. And if it turns out that it's a not this time, then maybe somewhere down the line, or you just move on to the next great person on the list.
Yeah. And like, really, what's the worst that could happen? They say no. Okay. Then you move on. But yeah, she's had such a dynamic, like, it's incredible. She's just got so much energy. I don't think she's a sit around and wait person, She finds different revenue streams. She finds different creative outlets and she makes it happen. And I'm just so impressed by it. And it just goes to show that if you have the vision and you can see the opportunities, you can probably make it happen.
Right. And another thing she also said was that she found the niche directing opera. She was like, oh, the missing piece is that physicality, which she's so good at. And she was able to match what she was good at with something that was already that was missing. And that's what makes that's her specialty now.
Yeah.
And
so great.
She's in demand.
Yeah. Yeah, this is going to be a great episode, I think, for any aspiring filmmakers, people who want to experience all sides of filmmaking, whether it be writing, directing, acting. I'm so glad that we had Dana on. That was a great episode.
Absolutely. All right.